In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a simple, recurring, or repeating next action or task in the GTD dashboard. This is a very common thing you're probably going to be using all the time and adding new ones, editing old ones. And so here's how we start a new one from scratch. I'm going to create a sample one for replacing my HVAC air filters, and I want to do that quarterly. So I'm going to open up my next actions panel here. I could also do it just by going to the next actions database. It's the same, it'll be the exact same functionality, but basically click on the little drop down beside new, and then we'll see a list of our templates for this database for next actions, and I'm going to create a new template down here. This will open up a little modal window, and I'm going to call it quarterly replace HVAC air filter. And I'm going to start by just creating a startup checklist. So typically I do this with a heading level 1 that is a toggle, so I can collapse it if I want to, and I would call it, I typically call this startup checklist, and then create a to-do. So the first thing I want to do is update the name with, in this case, I'm going to do it quarterly, so I'm going to add the year and the quarter. For example, 2025 Q1 replace, and I can just copy this here, replace HVAC air filter. Copy that, paste it in there. And the next thing I want to do is move the deadline to the to this Saturday. And then I'm just going to say defaults to the first day of the quarter. And then the last thing here I'm going to do, delete this startup checklist, because I don't really need this. I mean, you don't have to delete it, but I like to delete it just so it's cleaned up and there's not extra information, on my Notion, within my Notion. So now we need to set this to repeat. Right now it's not going to repeat automatically, but if I click this drop down, I have a few different options here. So I'm going to choose every 3 months because I want it to be quarterly. If I would want it to be like every other month, hang on. Actually, right there you can change it here. So I could change this to every 2 months if I'd want to, or every month if I'd want to. I'm going to do it every 3 months, and I want to create it on the first day. Now, you could set this to be the first Saturday. The reason I don't is because I'm going to change the name anyway, and so I might actually not do it on Saturday, or I might do it in 2 weeks. So that's why I'm just setting it to the first day of the quarter. And then, when it's created, I usually leave this at midnight or around midnight. And I want to start this on October 1st. That would be Q4 of this year. So I can now just hit save here. So now it's going to repeat every 3 months. Obviously, if you set this up differently, you might want to change this description here. And so now I can go ahead and just click out of this to save it. Now there's a couple things that I missed that will come. Actually, first off, the deadline. This is going to be critical. If you want it to show up automatically in your next actions when it's automatically created, you need a deadline here. So change this to this dynamic value to today. So whenever it's created, and in this case it'll be created next, I have it to set start on October 1st, and then every 3 months after that. So the deadline will be October 1st, or whenever it's created. Now there's one thing I missed that helps keep your GTD dashboard organized, and we'll see it once I click out of this. So I'm going to click out of it, and I'm going to come over here to create a new one. And you notice how these have the little check icons here, checklist. This one doesn't. It's just the generic page for a Notion page, and I use the icons to help me quickly glance to see what kind of content or what kind of page I'm working with. So I want to change that to be a checklist because that's what I'm using for my next actions. So if I click in here, edit it, and then if you hover towards the top, you can see add icon, and then you can choose an emoji. You can actually upload something if you want to. I tend to use icons, and because I most recently used this, I can just select that and then choose the color if I want to. So now if we click out of this and click over here, now you can see it has that icon. And I can drag these around to be in different orders if I want to. Probably the ones at the top are the ones that you want, that you're going to use the most. And some of these, they don't need to be repeating. The little circle with arrows means that it's going to be created automatically on a schedule. So the default one does not have that. And I could make one of these default too if I'd want to, but typically you wouldn't want to do that. And I can also create this manually. So it's automatically going to be created on the schedule I have set. But if I want to create it manually, I would just click on it, and now it will be created here. My my startup checklist is going to be generated here in a few seconds. There it is. I can expand it. Now I could start filling this out. So what I would do, typically so this will show up in my next actions on October 1st. So let's just say I want to do this for September. So I would follow this checklist. So rename it, update the name to include the year and the quarter. So I would just go 2025 Q3 : replace HVAC air filter, leave that, and I would just maybe set it for this Saturday. So I updated the name, I moved the deadline to this Saturday, and now I can delete this checklist. So I go over here and delete it, and we're good to go. And now when Saturday rolls around, it will pop up in today's next actions, and I can also see just by going to next actions in the calendar, right here I can see, there it is. So I'm going to delete this because it was just a example. So move to trash, and I'm going to delete it also from my templates because I don't want it to be in this blueprint. So I'm just going to delete that, and there we go, now it's gone. So hope that's helpful. And you can use this. Another thing too that makes it easier is often I will just go and just duplicate an existing repeating or recurring template, and then it kind of saves some of the steps that I already did. So typically what I would do is just go over here and just duplicate this. It will open up. This is a duplicate, which is obvious because it has that one at the end. And then I would just change the name. It already has a startup checklist that's here. So I would go and update the startup checklist and anything else in here that I would need to or want to. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this template, the trash. Now if I go back down here, there's nothing in there. I'm actually going to delete this one here as well. There we go. Hope that makes sense. If there's any questions, let me know.